In this video, we're going to be talking all about the Thralls of Dracula affiliation, what characters I've been playing, and take a look at the roster that I'm using at the moment. Hey guys, Rich from Richmond Gaming. Hope everyone is doing fantastically well. Welcome to this, another MCP video, and I am most definitely on the Dracula, or indeed the Thralls of Dracula train at the moment. Contrary to what I said in the previous video where I was like, oh, this is an all-encompassing affiliation, I don't like it for the game, I actually think AMG balanced this one quite well. Because the leadership unto itself and the way it works, it only really affects Dracula in terms of the heal, and it's not really giving anything else to the other characters. Yes, they get to dish out a bleed if they spend one power, or indeed if your opponent's already got a bleed, they can heal Dracula for one. But it doesn't feel very overpowered. It's not like Hellfire Club where you're giving out extra power across the board or removing damage across the board. So yeah, I'm fairly happy with it as an affiliation card. I think the cost of having to bring it offsets somewhat the fact that you can bring anyone. But overall, I've been really enjoying it. So I thought we would put a video together, talk about some of the thought processes I went through, the type of list that I have built, some of my experiences with testing other characters, what's worked, what's not worked, and take you through it all. So let's jump over and let's take a quick look. So Thralls of Dracula, let's first of all remind ourselves of Dracula himself, what he is, what he does, because he's going to be the main man in all of this. So he's a 5 threat, 4/3/4, has no defensive abilities that reduce damage or anything like that, but he does have 7 stamina, and he does have a clapback with eternal hunger. So he spends 2 power and he gets to make an attack back after an attack is taken against him, and he can use any of his attacks. So his Ancestral Blade is going to be his builder, 7 dice, range 2 physical, and then on Curse of Shadows, which is on a hit, you can give your opponent bleed, slow, root, or hex. Blood Feast, I thought was going to be one that I was using quite a lot because it does heal up for every damage done. It does cost 1 power. It is 1 dice less, so it is only 6 strength, but it is also range 2 as well. It's an auto bleed at the end of it, and as I mentioned, it's remove damage equal to damage dealt. But I've just found that the general healing that Dracula gets anyway, from that unholy vampiric immortality and from everybody else, he often doesn't need to do this. What I find myself doing most of the time, if it's possible, is the Fury of the Vampire. It does cost 6 power in total because of 2 of the Eternal Hunger and then the 4 that this costs, but it's 8 dice, it's range 3, and then if they're size 4 or less, you get to throw them away medium. And if they've already got the bleed special condition, you can re-roll any of your dice. So it does a huge amount of damage. Hypnotic Stare is nice to bring somebody into range or indeed move somebody off a point. But as with most of those, it can only be used once per turn. And then Shapeshifting, before he makes a move action, he gets to spend a power. And if he does, he can either gain flight, he can become the wolf to make his speed long, or he can drop all his objective tokens, remove all special conditions, and up to 2 damage from this character. This is really good, really good. Especially the wolf and the mist are the 2 that I'm using the most. The bat really doesn't come into play too much. In a pinch, if you need to get over a size 4 building, because he is size 3, then it can help, especially with that medium move that you get on that medium base. But overall, he is a bit of a powerhouse. He is a heavy hitter. He's right in my wheelhouse of the types of characters that I like. So let's then take a look at the Thralls of Dracula leadership. Unaffiliated reactive, basically it works the same as like Hellfire Club and all of these other ones. You can, take this as one of your 10, then becomes one of your 5, and you are now using the Thralls of Dracula affiliation, regardless of the affiliated characters you've taken with. The only exception to that is obviously going to be Dormammu, who overrides anything like this. But the leadership ability is Bloodlust. Once per turn during an allied character's activation, it may spend 1 power and choose an enemy character within 2. The chosen character gains the bleed special condition. If the chosen character already has the bleed special condition, this character may remove 1 damage from itself. Now, there's a bit of misunderstanding around this when it was first released. This character at the end there is Dracula. So even though your allied character pays the power, puts out the bleed, it is Dracula who receives the heal. So all the healing goes on to Dracula. So when I was building my lists out and when I first started playing with him, then I'm probably about 40 games or so now in with him. You obviously start with the box that he comes with, right? So we start with the other monsters. So let's go through each of these guys in turn. So Werewolf by Night, I was very underwhelmed with this character at first. He's got a lot of really good things that you like, right? He synergizes with the number of special conditions that people have with his card that he's got, Phases of the Moon. He's got a clapback, which is, really cool. Unearthly Howl to be able to do some more stuff. But only having 2 defense of any sort when you are a 5-threat character is very, very rough indeed. And I just found that he was being targeted very, very easily. And even, the weakest of mystic attacks, which are generally going to be 4 dice, still just rip through him so easily. 7 stamina is okay. Healing factor 2 is quite nice. If healing factor, the exceptional healing card, was still around, then he may have been better. The replacement for that is just not good enough. But yeah, he's got a lot of things that he can do, but he just didn't work for me personally. Let's get on to the next one then, Encanto the Living Mummy. Boy, is this guy good. So good. His damage output is just consistent. He's consistently getting the triggers that he wants on Swirly Strike. A 6 dice spender that gives him one of those captured soul tokens is not to be sniffed at. 4/4, so he is susceptible to energy. So you do need to be aware of that, and you do need to really think about which side of the board you're deploying him on, what your opponent is taking. But he does reduce damage, which is nice. And then obviously he's going to get one of those captured soul tokens every time another character is dazed or KO'd, both enemy and affiliated. He's also immune to bleed, hex and poison, which is really nice. And then his undead empowerment, he can spend those tokens in a couple of different ways. Undead empowerment is when he's attacking, he gets to count a fail as a wild, which is really nice. It makes that Swirly Strike much, much easier. And then living death, he can spend it to remove a special condition, remove a damage, or gain a power. So if you've got a few of them and you're in a bit of a pinch, you can spend them. And the nice thing about this is it's not limited to once per turn. So you can spend them when you need them, which is really, really nice. But the real kicker for this guy is Servant to Anubis. The number of times where I've got him up to 10 power, he's got 3 tokens on him, and he just gets to do an area 3 10 dice mystic attack. It's absolutely brutal, and has been the MVP move in lots and lots of my games that I've played. I was worried about him at first that 2 energy was going to be just too fragile for him. But if you position him correctly, you put him on the right side of the board, you get those conditions out into your opponent. So, you're not exploding your hexes and things like that. He is really, really good. And then lastly, we've got Frankenstein's monster, Adam. Another character who I thought was sort of mediocre. And I think he's perfectly fine as a character. He's definitely better as a member of the Midnight Suns rather than a Thrall of Dracula. Even his card, Hideous Monster, it's a sort of heroes for hire thing. It just isn't good enough. Yes, it stops an attack coming in, but the clapback isn't great. He doesn't really have any synergy whatsoever with Dracula, other than the fact that he can, he can pay a power and put an extra bleed out to be on the board that can then trigger some of the other things from Dracula. 4-3-3 is absolutely fine. I think this guy really needed a little bit of damage reduction in there just to make him a bit more of a tank, reduced by 1 to a minimum of 1, something like that. Power generation, if he isn't being attacked, is very, very difficult. So, yeah, for me, he just didn't really cut it. So we know what his leadership does. It's all around the bleed special condition. There are lots of characters in this game that can dish out bleed for free, which is nice because it means that, you get to do it for free. But there are also a handful of characters who have some kind of special interactions when it comes to bleed or kind of bleed adjacent. So let's go over and take a look at those characters, because this is where I started after the main box. This is in the second place I looked to bring some additional characters in. So starting off then, the obvious one out there is Blade. Blade has his vampiric immortality. It's almost the same as what Dracula has. It's just range 2 rather than range 3. The problem with Blade is he's just not very good. He's really not very good. Doesn't do enough in his turn. Really, you're only seeing Blade being played in Midnight Suns as the leader, because the leadership is really good. But I do think that once Elsa Bloodstone comes out, you're going to see him plummet and not really be played whatsoever. Apocalypse is another one. Now this is more of a bleed adjacent, but he does have an ability called You Will Be Remade Through Me. When an enemy character within 5 would gain a special condition it already has, this character may use this superpower. The enemy character gains the bleed, shock, slow, or incinerate special condition instead. So here, when you've got the bleed already, or your opponent's got the bleed already, and you pay to do it again, you can, rather than doing the Dracula thing, and I need to firm up if this works together or not. I've put a question on the forums. You can give them something else instead, so you can give them another condition. The problem with Apocalypse is he's not a splash character. He's very much not a splash character. It could be funky, it could work, but he is 6 threat with a 5 threat leader. He doesn't do a lot of great stuff. He really needs his horsemen around him to make that work. An interesting one is going to be Hela. Now, I played a lot of Hela, and there's a couple of things that I want to point out here. First of all, and the obvious one, is Reign of Hell. It's her big spender. And basically, if the opponent already has the bleed special condition, it doesn't count wild results when defending against the attack. So the fact that you can spend the 1, give them bleed, and already have that on there rather than having to try and get it from her Hellforged blade is quite nice. There's a couple of other things as well that do synergize potentially quite nicely. So first of all, we've got Claim Soul. So another soul carrier like Encanto. And spoiler alert, Encanto is absolutely firmly in my list. So I was like, okay, well maybe that's quite cool. I was then starting to think about Ghost Rider and things like that. So there was a couple of different things. Sorry, and the Ghost Rider one is on her flip side. When she would be dazed, when she would be KO'd, if she's got 3 tokens, she's not KO'd. There's synergy there with Ghost Rider. But I played her, And the problem is, she just doesn't do a lot. She doesn't do a lot at all. And I think if Eyes on the Prize hadn't disappeared, I would have put her up quite a lot, but it has. And unfortunately, compared to some of the other fours, if not some of the other three threats, she's just not cutting it for me. Another one was Archangel. So Archangel has got the avatar of death. Basically, his neurotoxin. After this attack is resolved, the target character gains the stagger special condition. If the target character has the bleed and poison special conditions and it does not have an activated token, it gains an activated token instead of gaining the stagger special condition. He can give his own poison out from the toxin fletchers from his builder. So I thought, well, that's pretty cool. He can spend a power. He can give out the bleed. He can do the razor wing strike. Hopefully dish out the poison, and then he can do a follow up and activate a character. He's got a charge in there and things like that. Chosen of Apocalypse is quite nice. A little bit like Gamora's strongest woman in the galaxy or something, deadliest woman in the galaxy. Flight and a medium move is okay. It'd be nice if it was a long move. But again, the games I played him with, he just wasn't doing enough during his activation to really justify his existence there. I'm going to pause for a moment here because really what I'm looking for in this roster are characters who can seriously hurt people. They can take a little bit of a punch, but they can also punch back. And this next guy is the absolute epitome of this. Drax the Destroyer. Yes, the Guardians have made a bit of an appearance. Drax is great. I think he's a very, very underrated 3-threat character. He's got damage reduction by 1. He's got 6 stamina. 332 is a little lackluster, but as I mentioned, he does reduce by 1. If you hurt him, he can give you a vengeance token, which means he's going to get 3 extra dice. But where the synergy comes in really nice is on his blades. It's only a strength 5 builder, range 2, power equal to damage dealt, but if your opponent already has the bleed special condition, you get to reroll 2 dice, which is really nice. It just ups his damage output significantly. He also has a terrain and enemy character throw, size 3, a 3-threat that has terrain and enemy character, and that's not to be sniffed at either. That's a great way of being able to get additional damage output. It does cost 3 power, but with those rerolls that he's getting on his blades, he should be generating enough. And if he's giving out a vengeance token, he can work really, really well. And then lastly, a newer addition to my list is the Hood, a character that I haven't played for a long, long time, but he does have black arts. So black arts basically lets you choose an allied character within 3. The chosen character may remove up to 3 damage. If it does, they gain the bleed special condition. And each character can only be affected by it once per turn. So yes, it's giving your opponent the bleed, but I've got a lot of characters, or people like Encanto are immune to bleed. There's going to be some other characters in there who are also immune to bleed, and the ones that I'm giving bleed to, well, guess what? That's just somebody else within range 3 that can potentially get that healing and the extra power onto Dracula. He also brings some pretty good mystic attacks, and when he's in his demonic form, if he's rolling those wilds on that dark lightning or empowered dark lightning, it can do the extra couple of damage that you need just to be able to finish somebody off. He's done some really, really good work for me, and I've actually really enjoyed playing Hood under Dracula. And as I say, that rapid fire hex shot, not to be underestimated. It's only range 3, but it's a guaranteed power. On a hit, he gets the rapid fire, but again, it is mystic. And I am lacking a little bit, other than Encanto, I am lacking a little bit of mystic attacks in my list. So these are the characters that all have, you know, I would say really good synergy with Dracula. The ones on the outside I've played with, they just didn't work for me, but who knows, they may indeed work for you. Okay, next up is going to be two threats. We always need to take a look at two threat characters. There's quite a few to choose from, but here are the ones that I picked out and I have play tested with. First of all, Bullseye. He's just solid. Great back point holder. Always guaranteed to do at least a damage. And, you know, his throwing knife can also dish out bleed as well. So even though he's, you know, unless somebody's moving up close and personal to him, he's unlikely to be able to spend the power to, you know, to do what he wants to do. But really, he just sits at the back point, throwing those knives, doing that guaranteed 1 damage, sometimes spiking and taking somebody off the board. And he does also have that parting shot as well. So all these little bits of chip damage that he's getting to pop out there. And you'll see that theme kind of in these lists. Next up was Wong. Wong's always worth testing out when you are trying a new list. He can remove conditions. He can dish out power. Dracula doesn't mind an extra power turn 1 because it means that he can use a long move. Turn 1, round 1, because he can use that long move and still have a power left to be able to pick up something or interact or whatever it may be, or just having an extra power. And as I mentioned, he can also heal as well. It does cost him an action to heal, but you know, he can also heal. Then we've got Nebula. The first of what I'm going to call team up two threats. So we've got Nebula in there, huge damage output, in your face, up close and personal. Somebody's contesting a point. They are going to take huge amounts of damage from her shock sword assault. In fact, from any of them, because if they're contesting, you get to reroll any number of dice. She gets about the board, she causes problems, and she's just all round solid. Rocket is also really good. Again, great back point holder, huge damage output. He's also got his booby traps, which is really nice. Again, it adds into that little chip damage that he's got. He always benefits from cover, which again just increases that 2-2-3 stat line. And then lastly was Honey Badger. Thoughts behind this was not only can she pair with X23 to get the movement, she can also act as a bodyguard if, as and when I need it. And she's also got that little range 1 aura where everybody's going to be rolling 1 less defense dice. I'll wait until the end to sort of go through and what I picked. What I will say is all 5 of these worked absolutely fine, but there are 2 that have just done such a good job for me that I ended up putting them in. Okay, let's have a look then at the partnerships then. So we've got X23, obviously with Honey Badger. X23 is just great. She's a great all-round character. She already dishes out bleed on her adamantium slash. Again, a little bit lacking in the defensive department, but if she does take somebody out, she gets to use her frenzy. So if she dares or KOs her, she does get to use her frenzy, move about the board, hopefully, you know, take somebody else out. So a lot of movement, a lot of block mitigation with those piercers on her, both adamantium slash and claw rush. And again, she did a really, really good job when I play tested her. Nebula's partner then is going to be Gamora. I love it whenever I can play Gamora. I really, really like playing her. She does so much, but she's just overshadowed by a couple of other 4 threats. Doesn't really have any real synergy whatsoever with what Dracula's doing, other than the fact that she is absolutely great at murdering people, and she can do a lot within her turn. Her Assassin Leap acts as a collision. Cosmic Assassin lets you make up to 2 attacks if you've got somebody else within range 2. It also you measure from your opponent, not from Gamora herself. And then Godslayer is, you know, really, really good. She does dish out bleed, actually. I do apologise. She does dish out bleed if it does damage. But Deadliest Woman in the Galaxy, for every wild, you get to change a die into a into a hit is so good. And then martial prowess. So again, she's got a little bit of out of activation or potential out of activation damage, which I do really, really like. And the team up card here is obviously Daughters of Thanos, which can be huge. If you hold on to it that little bit longer, wait until you've got power on Gamora to be able to do that Cosmic Assassin. Nebula doing her attack first, spending 1 power each, and then hitting them with a Cosmic Assassin is absolutely crazy. Really, really good. And then obviously we have got Groot with Rocket Raccoon. Probably the lesser of the ones, I would say. Of the 3 partnerships, Rocket and Groot were my least favourite. But we do get Deadly Duo, which is a great card. And we also get We Are Groot, which is a great way of being able to just, everyone within range 4 gets to remove 2 damage from themselves. And he also dishes out Root for 2 power, which is not to be sniffed at. Problem I found with Groot is that he's got a lot he wants to be spending his power on. Living Plant costs 2, Tangling Vines costs 2. You want power for I Am Groot if possible. We Are Groot costs 3. You need 2 in the pack for Deadly Duo. So he's got a lot that he wants to spend it on. And that one extra one about putting out the bleed, he just didn't really have the power to be able to do it. But he still worked well. I just, as I say, probably of the 3 team ups, he was the lesser. Him and Rocket were the lesser of the 3. And I did really enjoy X-23 Honey Badger, Gamora, and Nebula. Okay, then, guys. We've gone through some 3 threats there. We've got a few 3 threats. We've got some 2 threats that we spoke about. Let's talk about some bigger, not necessarily bigger hitters, but higher threat characters. You guys know me. I like to include at least 2, if not 3, 5 plus threat characters in my rosters. And because we got his card not long after I started playing a game, I looked at Mephisto. Now, Mephisto is really interesting as a character. He does a lot of really cool stuff. He brings some tactics cards that are pretty cool. He can offload an attack into Dracula. And in my head, I was like, oh, that's great. I can offload an attack into Dracula. Dracula can spend the 2 power. He can clap them back. And it did work. It was fine. I just found Mephisto to be a little bit lackluster. It did bring another option when it came to leadership. But I just found that then what I was, by going duo affiliated, I was kind of taking away from some of the things that I wanted to work with Dracula and trying to eke things in that would also work with Mephisto. And it really, really didn't work. So I did enjoy playing with him. He was fun, but he didn't make the cut for me. Next one up was Ghost Rider. You guys know me. I love me some Ghost Rider. He's immune to bleed, so he has really good synergy with the Hood. He's also immune to Hex, Incinerate, and Poison. So really good depending on the map that we are on. Does a huge amount of damage. Benefits those characters moving up the board and taking a couple of hits. And with characters like Encanto and with Drax, as long as it's not an energy or a mystic attack, they're probably going to be taking 2 hits to take down because of that damage reduction. That's going to feed power into Ghost Rider. It's going to let him do his Hell on Wheels, or it's going to let him do his Wicked's Judgment, where for every crit that your opponent rolls in an attack roll, you spend 2 power and they take that number of damage. I have had this happen so many times where an opponent has spiked, and yes, they've taken down one of my 3 threat characters, but Ghost Rider has been able to quote-unquote clap them back and do some really, really good damage. Penance Stare is a great way of being able to potentially just take out a character, but just sap them of any power that they have. And what would a rich list be if we didn't do double Ghost Rider? I've played a couple of times with Cosmic Ghost Rider. I'm still on the fence with him at the moment. He's really good, right? Chains of Sitarak is absolutely amazing. Being able to do the clapback if an opponent is dazed or KO'd is also really, really nice. cosmic power, a power cosmic penance there is just a brutal attack. Gets about the board, you know, counting failures even, does a huge amount. But of the two, I am leaning towards more the OG Ghost Rider rather than this version. But time will tell when I get more games in. Next up, and one that you should always consider and try out, is Thanos. I'm going to leave it short and sweet. I tried him. He was really good, but I didn't like playing him. It feels like a bit of a cheat code putting Thanos into lists, for me anyway. You know, yes, if you wanted to be an absolute, you know, the sweatiest you could possibly be, then take him. He's really good. He's really good anywhere. But for me, it just wasn't the sort of play style that I wanted. You know, yes, he can murder people, especially when he's got that reality gem. And he can move, you know, he does get to move Dracula about a bit, which is also really nice. But for me, it just wasn't good enough. It was, you know, sorry, not that it wasn't good enough. It just wasn't fun. It really, really wasn't fun. It's also 8 threat as well when you take him with 2 gems, which is just brutal. I thought I'd try a bit of new Thor. Thor has got a clapback. I think it's I say nay to thee, but he rolls 7 dice instead of the normal 4, which is crazy. You know, he can do pretty good stuff. Again, he was good. You know, when he got attacked, he hurt people. You know, you combine that with Ghost Rider doing the chip damage, and all of a sudden, you know, somebody was on 6 health left, can be at 0 after they've attacked Thor once with Ghost Rider's little chips and Thor's clapback. Again, I would rather take a combination of a 4 and a 2 threat, or a couple of 3 threats, just with the playstyle that I was taking. And then lastly is going to be the sort of, let's call them the safe extract plays. So Angela was my one of choice. This could very easily have been Namor, or indeed Amazing Spider-Man. They've all got their own merits. You know, Angela's great at taking the big boys down. And if she manages to take somebody out, a little bit like X-23, she does get all of those extra attacks, which is quite nice. And as I mentioned, she does offer some safe extract play turn 1, which, because Dracula only has 1 power turn 1, even with a long move, he's not able to do it because he's not able to generate an extra power to be able to pick something up once he's made the long move and get to that middle point. Let's talk about team tactics cards next, because there is going to be, I think, 5 cards you really want to be considering to take, and then some that you can mix and match with. So let's start off then. Well, we know that one of our tactics cards is going to be Thralls of Dracula, because we have to take that card to play Thralls of Dracula. Next up, Service to Anubis. I've already mentioned I'm taking Encanto. He's brilliant. This is staple to him. Never leave home without it if you are going to play the Mummy. The other card that is absolutely stapled to Dracula in this instance is going to be a card that's just rotated back out of the banned and restricted list, or the restricted list, into open play, and that is Warpath. Warpath is your friend. If you are playing Dracula, please, please, please take Warpath. Why is it so important? Well, it's important because for 1 power, you can advance towards the attacking character, which means 2 things. First of all, you're lining yourself up for your next turn, but also it means you can spend then another 2 power and do his clapback. So if you were at range 3 and you've been pushed or thrown, you can get back into range 3 potentially. Or if you don't have the power to be able to do his big attack that is range 3, you can get back in and make that 7 dice attack. I really like doing the 7 dice attack over the spending 1 for the healing. That extra dice just seems to do so much. But obviously it's dependent on where you are and how much health he actually has left. The other one that I think is my first restricted card of choice and it's going to be more often than not used on Dracula for him to be able to clap back, is going to be Sacrifice. This is such a good card. It means you can push an attack into, let's say you've got a Ghost Rider and you've got a Drac, Dracula, not Drax. You can offset that attack from Ghost Rider into Dracula. He can take it, and then you're going to get the crit damage from Ghost Rider and the clapback from Dracula. It's really good. Just remember, you can't modify our dice to the roll. And then last up is a card that I think almost everyone should be putting in their rosters at the moment. It's going to be close to it's going to be getting banned soon, without a shadow of a doubt, or restricted at the very least. Is Survival. During the power phase, spend X. X is equal to the threat of the character. Basically, you choose a character that is injured and they can't be targeted, done damage with, or anything during the first activation. There's so many use cases for this. Keeping a character alive who you want to keep alive, your opponent's got priority, or even using it on a character that, and I found this to be really good, using it on a character that does do a clapback. So I did this against the Thor. So I put this onto Dracula. My opponent had a Thor that was on X amount of damage. And I actually activated Dracula turn 1. We did big attack into, or a couple of big attacks into Thor. And what he wasn't able to do is use the clapback to be able to hit me. So there's some different use cases for it as well. And then the 5 guys are going to be open. They're very much going to be dependent on the characters that you are taking, and what you've chosen. The vast majority of these are going to be character cards. There's not many great neutral cards anymore. Neutral being they're unaffiliated and they're not bound to a character. So the last, your last 5 are probably going to be character specific cards that are in there. Okay, let's finish and talk about crisis cards then. So I'm just going to jump in. If you want a little bit more detail, put a link up here somewhere. That way, probably around my crisis card selection, what I did for this one. Let me keep it really straight, really simple. We are attrition focused. We want slow scoring, and I want to be able to murder my opponent. And if possible, play at a lower threat. I do like playing at a lower threat with Dracula. We picked Gamma Wave, Demons, and Intrusions. We lent into the Demons and we took some characters that were immune to Incinerate. Intrusions is great. You can just get about the board really, really easily. And obviously Gamma Wave, we're doing extra damage, and it's all down the middle. It's a big fight and I absolutely love it. For the extracts, we picked Fear Grips. Who doesn't love a hammer? Montesi, purely because I've got fairly good Mystic defense. If I look at Encanto, if I look at Dracula, they're both 4. And then lastly, we pick Research Station. Now, you're thinking, Rich, Research is restricted. Why are you bringing it? I just really, really like this crisis. If you didn't want to play Researcher, this could very easily become Struggle for the Cube. What I would say is, if it is Struggle for the Cube, you really want to make sure you have a turn 1 extract play in there, just to make it that much easier. Or if you didn't want to play Struggle, then something like Alien Ship would also work. Struggle for the Cube is quite nice actually. Dracula can pick them up. He takes the damage and he's got ways of being able to heal it off very, very easily. Alien Ship, does explosions of damage to everyone around them. But as I say, I kept with Research Station, just because I really, really enjoy that crisis, and I love the fact that my opponent doesn't have extracts to be able to run away with. Okay guys, so with that overview done, let's jump in. Let's take a look at the roster that I am currently playing. And as always with my rosters, They are works in progress, and I would recommend anybody doing this, get some games in. Don't come in and just, thinking that things are going to work together. Play some games. Find the characters that you are not using, the tactics cards you are not using, and look at your win rate, right? Look at the win rate on those different crisis card setups, and that'll give you an idea of what you should be picking, and more indeed what you should be trying to avoid with your opponent as well. But here is my roster at the moment. So let's go through it quickly, and then I'll tell you the ones that are most probably up for potential swap outs, should I say. So we've got Bullseye, we've got Cosmic Ghost Rider, we've got Drax the Destroyer, obviously Dracula and Gamora, and then we've got Ghost Rider, Hood Normal, or Hood, Nebula, Encounter with the Living Mummy, and Sabretooth. You already know the crisis cards. We've got Daughters of Thanos, Deal with the Devil, Highway to Hell, Hood's Gang, Joint Effort, Sacrifice, Service to Anubis, Survival, Thralls of Dracula, and Warpath. Let's talk about what I'm using and what my core is. This is almost always my core. I find that in nearly every game, obviously Dracula, but Encanto is coming in there. And wherever possible, and in most situations, I am using Cosmic Ghost Rider as well. So it is a little higher. It is a core of 13, which is fine. That lets me go 4 wide at 15, for example. But it is a core of, sorry, not Cosmic Ghost Rider, normal Ghost Rider. So this is a core of 13. And then depending on the setup, more often than not, it will be a Bullseye that goes in there. This is probably the sort of core that I've used the most. And they are the 4 characters that they're the 4 characters, actually, and Drax as well. They're the 5 characters that have always made the cut. The other 5 have been swapped in and out and replaced and things. But this is, a 15 threat. This is probably what I'm playing. The only exception could be if it is against a Guardians or something like that. Encanto may come out and we may put a Drax in just for that extra energy defense. But, for most situations, it's this. Why do I like Bullseye in this situation? Well, the nice thing about Bullseye is he can hold a back point, and he's a great target for Ghost Rider, and just guaranteed damage is always really, really nice. I played a game last night, and I think we played, it was either 19 or 20 threat, and I really shocked my opponent because I went super wide. And played this, which I think is, 20 threat. I can't remember what we were playing. Oh, we played Montesi, and we played Superpowered Scoundrels, I think it is, the sort of 5.1. So why did I go this? Well, I've got characters here who can get up close and personal. Every single member of his team was bleeding at one point. Dracula was getting a huge amount of power. It was against Criminal Syndicate. I did lose a little bit of... I lost the lead early doors, but I was able to catch it back up very, very easily just through attrition. Cards that I've got with these guys that I normally take. So, as I mentioned, if he's in there, it's going to be Thralls of Dracula, Warpath, and Sacrifice are 99% of the time making the list. So then it's a choice of a couple more. If I'm taking Encanto, it's Service to Anubis, which often happens. And then obviously if I've got Ghost Rider, it's going to be Deal with the Devil. Highway to Hell is a card I've had in there for 4 games now and I've never used. So that's probably due to come out. Could be a joint effort or something like that. A joint effort's already in there. This is the problem, is finding cards is difficult. There's a real lack of, as I say, neutral cards that could maybe a Recal Matrix or something like that could go in there. Characters that are still up for debate. Cosmic Ghost Rider is definitely up for debate at the moment. I really want to try out Wanda in with Drac, just purely because of her damage output, and the fact that she can dish out conditions, and the fact that she can heal my characters as well. Sabretooth has done some great work for me. His No Mercy can be brutal. Savage Predator with the finisher is great, and he does have that clap back as well, so it's another character that is doing things back to you on your turn. I did try characters like Bucky, who also have the, you daze my opponent, I get to hit you back. Just didn't really work. I do think that, old Bucky now is a little bit lackluster, to say the least. He's still okay, but needing the triggers that he needs for his rapid fire is pretty brutal. Yeah, there we go, guys. That is my list. As I say, it's still very much work in progress. This is about, I think, probably 40 games or so over the past few weeks since I've been. My office is almost done now. But let me know what you think. Are there some suggestions you've got? Would you change things out? This list is very much attrition focused, very much making your opponent think about what they're doing. If they target Ghost Rider, then I could put it onto Dracula with Sacrifice. If they don't target Ghost Rider, well, guess what? He's going to be able to do some chip damage to you, or Drax is going to put a vengeance token on you, or Sabretooth's going to hit you back, or Dracula's going to hit you back, or if you do daze someone, Cosmic Ghost Rider's going to attack you. So all sorts of things going on. I'm having a huge amount of fun with Dracula at the moment. And let me know in the comment section below if you've played any games with him. Are you enjoying him? Do you have any suggestions? Are there any absolute gems that I have missed that you think I should be including in my roster? Let me know everything down below, and I always try to read and respond to every comment where possible. Guys, I want to give a big shout out to all of our Patreon and YouTube members. You guys are absolutely amazing, especially over the past year where my videos have been a little less consistent, shall we say. I had a whole bunch of things happening. You guys know all about that, but a huge thank you to everyone who supported me. And if you do want to support me on Patreon or indeed YouTube membership, you can do so from as little as £1 a month. There'll be a link down in the description below for Patreon, and you can hit that YouTube members join button. But you don't need to do either of those things. There's no content ever behind a paywall or anything like that. It's just a way of being able to support the channel, and everything we get from there goes back into it. Yeah, thank you to everyone who does. Guys, check out the Discord. We've got our October Crisis event that's running at the moment. We're going to be doing monthly events here on in. We'll have our Christmas special coming up soon, which sounds crazy to say, as we are in the month of October already, which is just absolutely mental. But you'll be able to see everything that we're doing on there, all of the events we run, things like that. So head on over and go and check that out. And as always, guys, it leaves me just enough time to say stay well, keep safe, and until next time, bye for now.